Welcome, everybody, to the Neutral Zone Infraction Northwest podcast. I'm Drew. We are doing the first ever episode 12 today. Episode 12 for the 12s. I'm going to talk about fandom a little bit later on this show as my topic of the week. But before I do that, we're going to jump right into week 13 of the NFL and talk about some of the fun stuff that happened. First thing I want to mention is Jeff Fisher. It was reported earlier in the season, but never confirmed by the team. Well, now it's been confirmed that Jeff Fisher, coach of the LA Rams, has just signed a 2-year contract extension. So after his team going 7-9, and now his team is 4-8, by last I reckon, he's going the wrong direction. And for some reason, he's been the head coach of that team forever now, and they can't make the playoffs, and they can't win the division, and they can't seem to get better. Maybe they want to give him a little bit more time with Jared Goff, the number 1 overall pick. That's the most likely scenario in my mind, but man, how do you... There comes a point when it's just time to move on, and I think it's time to move on for that franchise. There's lots of great coaches out there, and Jeff Fisher, I mean, you can just look it up. He says some pretty unintelligent things. Of course, everybody does when there's camera on him all the time, but not the guy that I would want at the head of my franchise. I mean, I wish him all the best as a person. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Not a great head coach in my estimation. And he's had a ton of time. A ton. Just an absolute gigantic amount of time. Other things, football game-related things. Dallas continues to roll. I mean, they went in and beat the Vikings on Thursday night in their own building. Eventually, I'm going to give the Dallas Cowboys some credit. Is it going to be today? I don't know. I mean, I'm still not ready to declare them the best team in football. Now, I know they have the best record in football, and I know that they've, played in a lot of tough games, and I know that they've won, a lot of maybe challenging games, maybe not. But it's hard to win in the NFL regardless, and an 11-game win streak is definitely impressive. It's definitely hard to go in and be consistent week after week. And their run game, definitely I would consider the best in the NFL, is helping them get there. They still got a lot of question marks on defense, and I still want to see them against the NFL elite. So until those things happen, I'm not like a Cowboy believer, but they're doing a pretty darn good job. Detroit is another team that's been pretty surprising this year. They beat the Saints at home. The Saints were at home, and they got beat by the Detroit Lions, and they're trying to separate themselves in that close NFC North. We'll see what the Packers have to say about that going down the stretch, but the Packers have a tough matchup this week in the Hawks, so it'll be really interesting to see going forward what happens in that division. I think the Vikings are pretty much out of it at this point. They have one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I think the first game that Sam Bradford really played, he threw for a bunch of touchdowns and a bunch of yards as Stephon Diggs, but I haven't seen that connection. I haven't seen that stretch down the field since then. So I don't know where that went. I think the resignation of Norv Turner might be having an impact. Of course, the loss of Adrian Peterson earlier in the year, but the offensive line is awful. So I don't think that they come back in the NFC North, and I don't think that they're a playoff team. So it'll be interesting to see going down the stretch. I think it's really between Detroit and the Packers, because you never know what the Packers will do with Aaron Rodgers. But I expect the Packers to get beat this week and the Detroit Lions to win, causing further separation, making it hard for the Packers. And that brings me to the most fun game to watch every week, and that's the Hawks game for sure. Even when we lose, especially when we lose, it's a lot going on in my brain, and I love to watch those Hawks for sure. But we crushed the Panthers this week, and I called it. I absolutely called it. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, go ahead and head on over, check out the timestamp, and see what Drew says in the past about what happened in the future. Hashtag Drew was right. Anyways, we could have blanked them if it wasn't for one, kind of taking advantage of a guy who's not warm off the bench in Steven Terrell, with probably the fastest guy in the NFL, Ted Ginn Jr., kind of on that coverage there, on that deep pass. Otherwise, I mean, it's 40-7 by the end of this game. And we took Trevon Boykin was in. We took our foot off the gas. We could have put a 50 burger on him with the way that our offense was going. It was a great game. Lots of great stuff to love. But, I mean, that's going to bring me to my love Seahawk of the week. Lots to choose from. Thomas Rawls was running great in the first half. Not so much in the second half. He got kind of hit on one play and then wasn't as explosive afterwards. I kind of think it might have shook him up a little bit. But we didn't really we were kind of mixing it in with Pope going down the stretch as well. But he's not my love Seahawk of the week, but he had a really great game. Russell Wilson had a great game. Defense had an exceptional game, but I'm going with Tyler Lockett. Now, Tyler Lockett had a phenomenal rookie season. Just absolutely phenomenal. He was all pro, returning kicks and punts. I mean, all pro as a rookie is insane. It's crazy good. I don't think that he got enough attention for it because it was for special teams, but really exceptional stuff from Tyler Lockett last year. And we saw a resurgence of that, specifically in the special teams game this week. A lot of really great returns. And when you have that kind of weapon, you see how it kind of goes over and over with the field position, how that can make such an impact, how it can have such an effect on your offense as a whole, starting at the 40-yard line or the 50-yard line or even the 35-yard line, as opposed to the 25 or the 10 or the 15, where a lot of these guys who think they're going to return a kick end up getting tackled. So having that distance, having that shorter field really can do wonders for an offense. That being combined with he is wide receiver number 3, really, and he had some absolutely explosive plays, especially in the beginning of that game. So a lot of great stuff from Tyler Lockett. Earlier in the season, I mean, he wasn't off to a great start. He's dealt with a little bit of being banged up too and just not being as explosive as last year. And a lot of that's with the rule change with the kickbacks and things like that. I think that has some effect on it, what he takes out and what he doesn't. But this game, he was just phenomenal. I don't know if the Panthers are bad at special teams in general, but Tyler Lockett came to play, he balled, and it was awesome. All right, so a lot of great stuff. A lot of exceptional stuff in that game. Just was a fantastic game. I wasn't stressed out one time, and it was really great. Okay, I kind of lied. I was stressed out. And that's going to bring me to my not so much love Seahawk of the week. Now, don't eviscerate me for this. Don't hate on me for this. But it's Earl Thomas. And not for the reason that you think. My specific gripe with Earl Thomas, before I even get there, Earl Thomas was injured. He's out for the season. He broke a bone in his leg. That sucks. That extra sucks. I think if you point to any player on the Seahawks defense and say that one is the most important, I'm pointing at Earl Thomas or I'm pointing at Cam Chancellor. I don't know which one. I think it all works better. A lot of what they can do in the cover 3 is better with Earl Thomas just because of his speed and his ability to take away routes that not a lot of other safeties can take away. So losing Earl Thomas is, I mean, he's technically probably the most skilled defenders in that secondary. Richard Sherman is obviously great. Cam Chancellor, heart and soul, brings the boom. But Earl Thomas, that loss is huge. Like, my heart hurts for him, the emotions he was feeling, and it's going to suck going down the stretch without the best free safety in the game. The best free safety in the game. But don't send out that tweet, dog. Not 10 minutes after he got his diagnosis of broken leg did he send out a tweet that says, I'm thinking about a lot of stuff and I'm contemplating retirement. Before you have time to even talk to any of your teammates, to even digest the situation, you're getting on social media and you're pressing send. Don't press send. What are you doing? There's a lot there's a lot of things that you got to think about, the implications that a tweet like that can have. First of all, everyone in the city of Seattle who's a Seahawks fan, including me, immediately got like, say what? Come again, Earl Thomas? Like, you can't leave us, bro. We need you. And so instead of being at a loss for the injury, my mind's going like, he's not really going to retire. And I don't think that he is. I mean, having time to think about it, him having a conversation with Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Pete Carroll, all those guys, I don't think that he will end up retiring because of this injury. Will it be kind of hard to get back from? I have no doubt. But he's a tough guy, and I think that he's got quite a few more years left. But the point is, why would you send out that tweet? It just baffles my mind. You got to think. You got to think before you do it. I'm sure his agent was like, what? And I mean, at the end of the game, Russell Wilson kind of got Michelle Tavoya in the interview at the end of Sunday Night Football. She's like, what do you think about Earl Thomas in his retirement tweet? And he's like, you can see for like a split second before he turns on all his cliches that he has inside his mind, he freaked out for a minor second, and then he came up with some answer I don't even remember, but very cliche. But that's not really great for the team. It's not really the greatest time to be sending that out. Earl Thomas is kind of a weird dude, but I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be okay, and I really, really hope he's not serious about retiring, which I don't think that he is. So, going down the stretch, the long and the short of all that stuff that I just said all together is it's going to suck not having Earl Thomas. It would suck even worse never having Earl Thomas again. But I don't think that's going to happen. Steven Terrell has shown that he's a capable backup, and I think with those other guys around him, I think we'll be okay in the secondary. We definitely have the deepest defensive backs roster list room in the NFL, so definitely feeling better than if two offensive linemen went down for some reason. But I think that we'll see a noticeable drop, but it won't be as bad as a lot of people think. It's a fun time to be a Seahawks fan right now. I mean, we're winning a lot of games. We've had this history of winning for a while now. We're 3 games up in the division. Not really any competition there. We have the ability to clinch a playoff spot this week. It's a really, really great time to be a Seahawks fan. And that's going to bring me into my topic of the week that I talked about a little bit earlier, and that is fandom. So it's episode 12. I wanted to take some time to talk about the 12s, the 12th man as they were. All us crazy people who the Seattle Seahawks are our football franchise. We bleed blue and green. We are loud and proud and generally excellent fans. But not a lot of people, specifically on the internet, number one, and in other NFL fandoms, number two, we're kind of the laughing stock of the NFL. I mean, there's obviously the Browns, who people are just like, oh man, it sucks to be a Browns fan. But with Seahawks fans, the big moniker or the big tag on Seahawks fans is, oh, they're bandwagon fans. None of them even watched football before Russell Wilson showed up in Seattle. And for a lot of Seahawks fans, that's true. That's absolutely true. And you know what? I'm here to tell you today there is nothing wrong with that. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break down what it means in my mind, and I'm not the be-all, end-all of what it means to be a good fan, but we're listening to my podcast right now, so I'm going to go ahead and break it down for us all. This is what it means to me. This is what I try to do, and I think that if everyone did these things, it would be a little bit less of a hostile environment for everyone involved, and we could all just watch some football and have a good time. So what does it mean to be a fan? First of all, someone can't tell you whether you are a fan or you're not. You know it. You know it deep inside. Are you ready to watch the game? Are you excited about the Seahawks? Are you loyal to the Seahawks? Are you just amped up, ready to go, hyped up at the sound of Steve Rabel's voice or a Marshawn Lynch touchdown run, or when Russell Wilson does that thing where he spins around in the backfield and makes a guy go on skates the other direction? If those kinds of things pump you up, then you might be a Seahawks fan. And nobody can tell you that you're not. And I want to make that abundantly clear. For a lot of Seahawks fans, especially if you're a newer fan, there's going to be a lot of, oh, well, you're just a bandwagon fan. You just like the Seahawks because they're good. Well, okay. These are the same people, honestly, that are, if they're a Steelers fan, they're like, oh, yeah, you're just a fan because they're good. Well, the Steelers franchise has been good forever. Or a 49ers fan. 49ers fans have been good forever. They've got all these championships. They've got these heydays of good teams that consistently go to the playoffs, consistently win championships. That's where we're in right now as a Seahawks organization. The Pete Carroll win forever sort of area. That's where we are. And you know what? If you're new, if you're here, if you're just getting on now, excellent. Well done. You've missed a lot of the suffering. And, of course, you've been around for enough. If you don't think Marshawn Lynch not getting the ball at the 1 yard line is enough suffering for any kind of fan, then you don't watch football. I don't know where the idea of a fan is not a fan unless there's been some sort of suffering came from. A fan is a fan if they're loyal to their team, if they're educated about their team, if they are amped up for their team, if they go to games, if they watch games, even if they can't watch them all. A fan is a fan. And even if you got on late, even if you're just getting on now, that's fine. That being said, there are some other characteristics that can kind of give all fans a bad name, if you will, that can kind of ruin it for everybody in terms of how we're tagged as a fan base. And those kinds of things are pretty simple. Those are the people that, sure, they're a fan now when it's good, everything's hunky-dory, high fives, and then maybe not so much. And then once we're good again, they get right back on, and they're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then maybe if something bad happens, then they're like, oh, this sucks. I hate this team. Why am I ever a fan of this team? I mean, that's what a bandwagon fan is to me. When you're off and on and off and on, whatever. If you're getting on and you love it and you're on the train, welcome aboard. But here's the biggest rule. This is really my only rule as far as when it comes to fandom. If you're going to say something to another fan, if you're going to say something to maybe a debate of some kind, just make sure that what you're saying has a little basis in fact, maybe can be debated successfully, maybe has an iota of truth behind it. For example, let's say that I'm a Seahawks fan, and which I am, of course, and I want to tell somebody that the Seattle Seahawks has the best defense in the league. Well, that's true. I can say we have the best cornerback in terms of interceptions since he's joined the league, in terms of touchdowns allowed. He's in that top percentile there. In terms of tackling, definitely top cornerback, Richard Sherman. Those are some facts. I can say that. I can say it in a way that's maybe a little bit like, hey, check out our guy. And less about, hey, screw you, check out our guy. There's a little bit of a difference there. Now, if I were to say every other team in the NFL is garbage, the Seahawks are the best team ever, every part of our team is the best, any team who comes into our stadium, I'm going to boo them. I'm going to say nasty slurs at you, blah, blah, blah. You suck so much. Maybe I'm not so much of a fan as I am just a guy trying to blow off some steam because my 9 to 5 sucks and I hate my life. Maybe there's a little bit of a difference there. So keep that in mind, going forward. If you might consider yourself in one category on the other. Now, I'm not thinking that anybody that actually listens to this thing is one of those two types of fans. I just want it to be recorded on record what I think a fan should be. Now, I'm also not saying that football is a sport where we all shine our monocles, put them on, and have a lovely debate around tea. Sometimes debates can get a little bit heated because I believe one thing, you believe another, and it's a heated discussion. But keep in mind that it's a game. It's an awesome game. It might be the best game, but it's a game nonetheless. Another thing to consider when you're thinking about fandom, or when I think about fandom, is you're not like a fan based on how much money that you put into being a fan. What I mean is this. With the success of the Seahawks comes the increased price of merchandise, of stadium tickets, because the market's there, because there are a lot more fans now, and that's great. And all of them are getting this stuff, and this is how capitalism works. But you can still be loyal without shelling out an arm and a leg. And if you don't shell out an arm and a leg, I don't. The most I shell out is for cable. And that's so I can watch it and rewind games and play them and maybe record them and watch them in HD. That's the money that I spend on the Seahawks. I buy jerseys. I got a custom jersey. It's awesome. It says Drusigi on the back. It's awesome. But I don't go to the stadium because it's too expensive. It's, as a young single male with not a huge, vast sums of money, I don't have the ability to go to CenturyLink Field to watch a game. Mostly because I would be less comfortable than I am on my couch. Also, because it's hideously expensive. That's not saying that I won't ever go to a game again. I'm actually thinking about going to one pretty soon. But just because if somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh, you're not a real fan. When's the last time you were at CenturyLink Field? I'm like, well, when it was Quest Field, but whatever. So there's a lot of just don't feel like you're priced out of being a fan. Being a fan is being a fan. If we're going to get anything out of this topic, and it's a lot of rambling with a little bit of fact in it, being a fan is being a fan. Only you know when you're a fan. You can't be told that you're not a fan. Be a nice fan. Don't be obnoxious. And have a good time. It's a game. I'm happy that there are a lot of fans. I'm happy there's a lot of people for me to talk to about the Seahawks. I'm happy that when people come and ask me questions about the Seahawks, about maybe I don't know what this means, or hey, Drew, what does it mean when there's offensive pass interference versus defensive pass interference? Well, I'm happy to tell you those things because maybe you haven't been a fan forever. Maybe your parents didn't watch sports when you were a kid, so you didn't get into it. And so all these people are like, I've been a fan since I was 4 years old. It's like, no, you haven't. You were a toddler. You don't know anything. Goodness. Let people make adult decisions for their own selves. Of course, teach your kids right, people. If we're going to do anything, it's take our impressionable children and mold them correctly into the correct fandom. But just everyone can be nice to each other. We can have rational debates. We can have rational discussions. I'm happy to talk up and down with anybody about the NFL and all the things in it, even if we have differing opinions. So that's kind of touchy-feely, kind of everyone come together, but man, it gets super annoying. Really, really annoying to be on the internet, really, or even in person sometimes with a lot of these people, with a lot of people that are, and you know them, the people that post and the people that are like, oh, you're wearing a Seahawks jersey? When'd you get that? 2 years ago? Ha ha ha, Russell Wilson, ha ha ha. Well, go ahead and cry in your own tears. We'll just go win a couple more championships with the guy. Should be a good time. So that's fandom. That's what I think of it. That's what I think it is. If you have additional questions about it, or questions about anything else in football, maybe you're a new fan, maybe you want to learn, well, you can ask me your questions. I can read them on this podcast and answer them for everybody. You can tweet me at NeutralZoneNW or send me an email. Good old-fashioned, open up your Outlook, type a little thing, put in this URL, NeutralZone Infraction, NW, at gmail.com. That's the one you want. And you can type it up and send it on my way. I will look at it. And with the number of questions I get, you best believe I'll read it on air. Absolutely, 100%. I will answer your question. Should be a lot of fun. Not as much fun, though, as my favorite part of the show. Guess what part that is? You guessed it. That's the part where I pick games that haven't happened yet. Let's go. We got a full slate of games this week. What does that mean? Oh, nobody's on bye week. That means we're picking for all of these teams. Well, let me just get out my handy-dandy cheat sheet here. Last week was kind of a throwaway week. I went 8-7. I took some gambles, took some shots. Didn't work out for me. The Dolphins got just absolutely wrecked by the Ravens. My goodness, did I not see that coming. Chiefs got really lucky against the Falcons. Again, didn't see that coming. Lots of crazy stuff happened, but it was a fun week. Sometimes people are wrong. And it reminds me of how competitive the NFL is, that you really don't know who's going to win each week, which is pretty exciting. That's why sports are fun. That's why we're all here. Let's get started. Thursday night, Raiders at Chiefs. This is the biggest Thursday night game all year. Am I right or am I right? The playoff implications for this game are huge. So let's say the Raiders win. The Raiders will basically lock up the AFC West and kind of ride that, maybe even to the number one seed in the AFC. But they're visiting a Chiefs team that's hot, that has found ways to win, and has a stellar defense. And that's why I'm giving the edge to the Chiefs at home. Now, the Chiefs can tie the Raiders with a win. So things can get real messy in the AFC West, one of the most competitive divisions in football, with the Broncos at 8-4. In addition to these Chiefs and these Raiders, it can become a real big mess, a real ruckus real quick. But I like the Chiefs in this game. The Chiefs have shown an ability to win in these primetime games in whatever way necessary. And I'm excited to watch. It's going to be a great game, but I think that the Chiefs come away victorious. They have the most on the line. Ultimately, that's what's going to get you the win, if you believe, and you try hard, and you eat your Wheaties. All right, next game, Sunday morning, Redskins at Eagles. This one's a hard one for me. It's hard because the Redskins burned me last week when they didn't beat the Arizona Cardinals. But the Eagles also burned me when they started out with 3 quarters in the game, not scoring any points in Cincinnati. So, gosh, I don't know. That's kind of how I looked at this game. It's like, I don't know who's going to win. It's a divisional matchup, and they're at home. But the Redskins, I think, are a better team all around. So I'm going to pick the Redskins. We'll see. Good luck with that one. Don't bet on this game. Just don't. Whatever I say, the other thing is going to happen. So Redskins are going to win. Should be interesting. Next game, Texans at Colts. Another one of these divisional games. We're going to get a lot more of these going down the stretch. The NFL likes to plan it that way, which is fun. Not so much in our division because we pretty much have it locked up, but should be fun going down the stretch. Texans at Colts. The Colts embarrassed the Jets. Last night for me, it's Tuesday night when I'm recording this. Last night was Monday Night Football, and the Jets got just embarrassed. It was 40-3 when I quit watching. So that was a rough one for them. And the Colts offense looked really dynamic. And the Jets defense is like no slouch, but they were playing really poor. Here is the most important thing. Brock Osweiler has played like garbage on the road. pretty much. And the Colts have owned the Texans historically, just absolutely owned them, completely owned. So going with the Colts at home, definitely. Next game, Bengals at Browns. Now, the Browns actually played the Bengals pretty close the last time they played. They actually went out to a big lead, and then the Bengals came back and won. But, I mean, do the Browns just want to be 0-16 because it's funny at this point? I don't know if they have enough talent to win. And the Bengals, despite losing a lot of key players, played really, really well this last week, which surprised me against the Eagles. I'm going with the Bengals just because I can't bring myself to pick the Browns, but it's a lot more of a conversation than I've had the last couple of weeks about it, so should be an interesting one to watch. Bengals, though. Next game, Broncos at Titans. Here I go. I'm going to pick an underdog. Titans, I think, are going to pound the rock against the Broncos, and I think they're going to win. Broncos secondary is exceptional. They're really good. Front seven, also pretty good. But I don't think that you want to really pass too much if you're Marcus Mariota and Von Miller is coming to just kill you in the backfield. So I think that they pound the rock with a combination of DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. I think it works well for them at home. I think they win the time of possession battle, and I think that they win. Should be a fun game. I hope I get it so I can watch the Titans pound the rock and win. Hashtag Drew is right. All right, next game. Cardinals at Dolphins. The Dolphins got pretty embarrassed in Baltimore after a 6-game win streak. So that's on their mind. The Cardinals have not traveled well this year, haven't really played well anywhere. But specifically, I think they're going to have a hard time against the Dolphins. I think Carson Palmer gets sacked a few more times than he wants, and that's going to be the difference in this game. And I think the Dolphins are going to bounce back in a big way and win at home. All right. Next game, Bears at Lions. So remember that one time I picked the 49ers to beat the Bears at home? Well, that might just turn out to be the stupidest pick of the year for me. I take full responsibility for that. Colin Kaepernick got sacked as many times as he passed yards for. That's 5 yards passing, 1 for 5, 5 sacks. My goodness, they were bad. Chip, I wanted to see what your offense could do. I don't know what that franchise does. I don't know what they do. I don't know how fast they can turn it around. I expect them to be not very good for quite a few years. Should be interesting. The after Harbaugh effect, if you will. But I'm definitely picking the Lions in this game because I'm talking about the Bears and the Lions right now. The Lions are hot. They need to win, definitely, to put distance between them and Green Bay. And the Bears are, they thinking about draft picks at this point, for sure. So Lions are going to win at home. Could be close, though. Divisional, for sure. Next game, Steelers at Bills. Now, the Steelers have looked a whole lot more like the Steelers since after Ben Roethlisberger's injury. They started the season really slow. They lost some pretty dumb games early on in the season, but now they're in a battle. They have got to keep pace with the Baltimore Ravens if they want to make the playoffs because the AFC is tight because of the AFC West teams are all really good. So I don't see a wildcard team coming out of the AFC North. So the Steelers really have to get it going in order to make the playoffs. And I think that they are a Super Bowl caliber team in a lot of ways, specifically on the offense. I definitely think that they go in and get a win in Buffalo with that high-powered offense for sure. Le'Veon Bell has been outstanding. Like, if you look at his stats, they're really good stats. And then you think about the fact that he missed the first 3 games of the season, and it's outstanding. Really, really great running back. Next game, Chargers at Panthers. Well, the Panthers come off a beating. The Chargers lost to Tampa Bay. One of the worst field goal kicks that I've ever seen. Josh Lambo, look it up if you haven't seen it already. It's pretty bad. Like, it wasn't tipped or anything. He shanked it. He shanked it all the way. This game should be good, I think. Pretty close. I think the Panthers will bounce back at home, especially if they get Luke Kuechly back. If I was the Panthers organization, I definitely wouldn't rush him back. Like maybe let him play like 1 or 2 games at the end of the year, but definitely not at this point. But if he comes back, he's a real key, integral part of that defense, which is a good defense, especially with him in it. Thomas Davis, of course, obviously really good, and he's in there now too. I think they bounce back. Maybe Ted Ginn Jr. busts one. So I think the Panthers will win at home. Next game, Vikings at Jags. This game might actually be quite a bit closer than people think because the Vikings have a really bad offense. So do the Jaguars, really, even though their offense was pretty good last year. I think the Vikings' defense and special teams is the difference in this game. I think the Jaguars is the type of team where a defense and special team only can win you the game. And so that's why I picked the Vikings to go in and get a win against the Jaguars. It'll be interesting to see going forward. And I don't want to get too far into this, but it'll be interesting to see how the Vikings maybe attempt to rebuild, who they draft, do they get a quarterback, how's Teddy Bridgewater progressing. A lot of questions for that Vikings team. And get well, Mike Zimmer, having eye surgery. He wasn't on the sideline against the Cowboys, so should be interesting to see. If he's there this time, I think he will. He might have to drive, though. Ugh, driving to Florida from Minneapolis. Ugh, that's a drive. I don't even know what road you take. What road goes up and down America that's not I-5? I don't know, West Coast, Best Coast. All right, next game. Jets at Niners. Or as I like to call it, the garbage party. The Jets have been they were kind of good last year. There was some Fitz magic, and they were like, are they going to make the playoffs? I don't know. And there was a lot of fun. But this year, like turnovers, revolving door of quarterbacks, injuries, just not a great year for Todd Bowles and the Jets. Now, I already talked about how the 49ers are awful. It'll be Blaine Gabbert versus Ryan Fitzpatrick, ? Like, are they going to try one of their other guys? I don't know. But it shouldn't be a very good game. That being said, there's going to be about 6 people in Santa Clara at this point with the 1-10 or 1-11 49ers. There are going to be about 8 people in the stadium, 6 to 8. I'll take the under. But just kind of a throwaway game. I think the Jets go in and win, though, just because they are a higher caliber team than the 49ers. And I'm not going to pick the 49ers again. Ugh. Bad mistake, Drew. Anyways. Next game, Falcons at Rams. So the Falcons are going to win this game, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I don't know if LA fans, because they are LA fans, are happy with Jeff Fisher continuing to run the show. And I talked about this at the top of the show. But I don't think that's a good choice. I don't think that's a good direction for their franchise. But I'm not Kroenke, Stan Kroenke, Kronkite's an anchor. Kroenke, yeah. He's the owner of the LA Rams. Your choice, dog. I mean, you do you. Falcons win this game. Next game, Saints at Bucks. This is actually kind of a fun one. The Saints are pretty much out of it, but they're not mathematically out of it. I think they would end up being mathematically out of it if the Bucks win this game. But the Bucks are trying to be in charge of that division. They're gaining on the Falcons, especially with the loss against the Chiefs last week. The Falcons endured. So they're trying to win the division. They're hot right now. They're on a 4-game win streak. They beat the Seahawks. They're rolling on all cylinders, and they're at home. So I got to pick the Bucks here. We'll see what happens. That's a fun, young, exciting team. Could be good in the years to come. Next game, Hawks at Packers. Whew. What a fun one. It should be a lot of fun. If nothing else, it's going to be snowy, probably. At the very least, it's going to be cold. I'm interested to see Russell Wilson, even if it's cold and snowy, try to take advantage of all the defensive injuries that the Packers have had. And on the flip side, it's also going to be really interesting to see how the Hawks defense does without Earl Thomas against Aaron Rodgers, who's in Aaron Rodgers' form these past 2 games for sure. It'll be real interesting to see kind of if he's able to exploit the lack of Earl Thomas or if Steven Terrell is really the replacement that I think that he is. Regardless, Rodgers is going to make some throws. But if the offense is going, if it's humming like this last week, then Absolutely. I think we go into Lambeau, get the win, sort of dash the playoff hopes of the Packers. That's the only thing that worries me, though. The only thing that worries me about this game is that the Hawks have really nothing. I mean, honestly, besides the game, they really have nothing to lose with this game. The Falcons lost last week. I mean, going down the stretch, we play our own division, so it's at home a lot, so we can win a lot of these games and still lock up that number 2 seed. And Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are fighting for their lives. Like, this team hasn't missed the playoffs in 7 years. So if they lose this week, they're pretty much out of it. Because the Detroit's going to beat the Bears. They are. So they're fighting for everything at home in front of the Lambeau faithful. So it should be an interesting one. I still think that the Hawks win. But I'm excited to watch it, for sure. Next game, Sunday Night Football. Cowboys at Giants. Now, this was a hard one for me. And even as I sit here and look at my sheet, I'm like, who's going to win this game? The reason why it's harder is because the one loss that the Cowboys have came at the hands of the Giants. Now, these teams were a lot different. You know, rookies being rookies, first game of the year, blah, blah, blah. Terrence West messing up the thing. Yeah, Terrence West. Terrence. I'll remember his name. Anyways, the point is, the Cowboys are going into to MetLife, to the Giants. This is a huge divisional game, and I'm still not sold on the Cowboys. So I'm picking the Giants in this one. It should be a lot of fun. Mostly, I just want to root against the Cowboys. Not going to lie to you. But the Giants definitely have the tools to win. They have an amazing wide receiver core. If Eli Manning is on point, which I think that he will be in this big game, this is a huge rivalry game. Cowboys-Giants, huge rivalry. Divisional game. So, divisional game, the Giants are no slouches. The Giants are at home. The Giants are the only ones who beat the Cowboys earlier in the year. The Cowboys know that. A lot of things kind of point towards the Giants. So the more you think about it, the less of a weird pick it is. But I definitely think the Giants are going to win this game. Should be a lot of fun. This week, I'm getting to the last game, Monday night. We've almost made it. It's full of a lot of great games. Like Thursday night, excellent. Sunday morning, the excellent matchup. Sunday afternoon, Seahawks, Green Bay, excellent. Sunday night, Cowboys at Giants, excellent. Monday night, Ravens at Patriots. Now, Ravens at Patriots is always fun because the Ravens have proven, really, since nobody's really been able to beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at Foxborough, except for the Seahawks earlier this year. Yeah, go us. The Ravens have gone in the playoffs and beat them. So they're really not, they've shown that they're not afraid of the Patriots. Here's the problem, though. Their offense is garbage. Even though they put up 38 points on an absolutely fluke game against the Miami Dolphins, their offense is not that good. And the greatest D coordinator in the league, Bill Belichick, is, I think, going to make Joe Flacco's day kind of hard. And I think that with the way that Tom Brady's playing and the way that offense is, even with the loss of Gronkowski, I think that he's going to have a good day too. The only way that the Ravens win is if they can get to Tom Brady, sack him at least 3 times. That's like the magic Tom Brady sack number. If you can pressure him, if you can knock him down, if you can hit him, it's proven that he can be beaten. But I don't think that happens, and I think that the Patriots win in Foxborough on Monday night. So that was the full slate of games. It's a lot of games. A lot of quasi-analysis there, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, that's been my podcast for this week. Thanks for listening, guys. Again, if you have questions, tweet, email, comment, like, share, subscribe, all the social media stuff. Tell your friends. Have another great week. Stay warm in the snow. And thanks for listening.